In a quiet suburb of New York, Amber Donovan lived with her 8-year-old daughter Emma. Their apartment, built 20 years ago, wasn't particularly spacious, but it was a warm home filled with their laughter. Amber was a hard-working single mother at a mid-sized marketing company. After divorcing her husband 5 years ago, she had been struggling to balance childcare and work on her own. Though she felt tired from long hours and commuting, seeing Emma's smile always gave her renewed strength. "Mom, I got a perfect score on my math test today." Emma would always eagerly report the day's events when she returned from school. She was a bright, intelligent girl who excelled academically and had many friends. With her large brown eyes and long brown hair, she resembled Amber. "That's wonderful. You're so smart, Emma." Amber hugged her daughter and made a silent promise. "No matter how difficult things get, I want to give this child the best life possible." Amber's parents, Judith and Howard Clark, lived in an upscale neighborhood about an hour's drive from downtown. Howard was a former executive at a major pharmaceutical company who enjoyed a comfortable retirement with generous pension and investment income. Judith, a former high school teacher, was now active in local social circles as the president of an exclusive gardening club. Amber's younger sister Olivia was a talented lawyer at a prestigious law firm. She lived in a luxury apartment near their parents' home with her husband Brian, a doctor, and their 6-year-old son Michael. Olivia always demanded perfection and wouldn't compromise in either her work or home life. "Won't you come see our new vacation home? I'm heading there this weekend with Brian and Michael." Olivia's voice over the phone carried its usual hint of superiority. The family dynamics had gradually become distorted since Amber's adolescence. Her parents, especially her mother Judith, clearly favored perfect Olivia. When Olivia was admitted to law school as the top student, her parents threw a party at an expensive restaurant. In contrast, when Amber was accepted to art college, they coldly received it as an impractical choice. "Amber, why can't you be more like Olivia?" This was her mother's favorite phrase. Amber was always the slightly inadequate daughter, the child who couldn't quite meet expectations. The same was true for their marriages. When Olivia married an elite doctor, her parents fully supported a lavish wedding. When Amber married Jason, a web designer, they asked, "Couldn't you have chosen someone with a more stable job?" After the divorce, the gap widened further. Her parents frequently invited Olivia's family for dinner and generously provided expensive toys and education funds for Michael. Meanwhile, gifts for Emma were always practical and limited to special occasions. "I bought Emma some workbooks. Education is important, you know," Judith would say while handing Michael the latest gaming console. Still, Amber wanted to nurture the relationship between Emma and her grandparents. She wanted her daughter to feel the warmth of family bonds. Emma herself was a kind and gentle child who always greeted her grandparents with a smile, even when they were sometimes cold toward her. "Grandma, I drew this picture. What do you think?" Emma would present her drawings with a serious expression, but Judith's response was always the same. "That's nice, dear," she would say dismissively before quickly changing the subject to Michael. Amber's heart ached many times at this situation, but she told herself, she'll understand when she grows up. She made sure never to speak ill of her parents or sister in front of Emma. Christmas was always particularly difficult. The elaborate parties at her parents' house were filled with subtle tension. The special treatment Olivia's family received was obvious, and Amber and Emma were often treated more like invited neighbors than family. "I hope this year will be different," Amber wished as she looked at December 25th, marked on the calendar. Emma wanted a new doll. To fulfill her daughter's wish, Amber worked overtime and saved little by little. On December 24th, Amber started the car engine and checked Emma's expression in the rearview mirror. In the back seat, Emma carefully held a small homemade cookie tin decorated with red and green ribbons. "Do you think Grandma and Grandpa will like these cookies?" Emma asked anxiously. "Of course they will. You made them with such care." Amber smiled kindly, but anxiety swirled inside her. Her parents' reactions were unpredictable. The car entered an upscale neighborhood in Westchester County, passing houses with grand entrances. Christmas illuminations decorated the homes, and the streets were filled with a festive atmosphere. "Mom, will Santa come to Grandma's house too?" Emma's eyes shone with anticipation. I'm sure he will, Amber replied, thinking about the present she had left in their small rented apartment. The Princess Stella doll that Emma had been wanting, purchased with saved overtime pay. Just imagining the smile on her daughter's face on Christmas morning made her fatigue vanish. When they arrived at her parents' large white house, Olivia's luxury SUV was already parked in front of the entrance. You're late, Judith said at the door. Olivia and her family arrived 30 minutes ago. Hello, Mom, Amber smiled and said. I got held up finishing work. Grandma, Merry Christmas. Emma cheerfully presented the homemade cookies. I baked them myself. Well, thank you, Judith accepted the cookie tin but immediately placed it on a side table. Come on, everyone's waiting. Entering the living room, a magnificent Christmas tree sparkled brilliantly. Many presents were already piled underneath. Olivia's son Michael was playing with the latest tablet and didn't even look up when they entered. Amber, Emma. You're late, Olivia rose from the sofa. She was wearing what looked like an expensive knit dress with a perfect hairstyle. Dad and Mom were just telling Michael about next year's summer camp. It's a top-tier science camp. That's wonderful, Amber forced a smile. Emma, say hello to Grandpa, Amber gently pushed her daughter's shoulder. Emma ran to Howard and exclaimed, Merry Christmas, Grandpa, as she hugged him. Howard smiled somewhat awkwardly and lightly patted Emma's head. Hey, how are you? When dinner time came, Judith served an elaborate turkey dish. The table was decorated with expensive tablecloths and candles, creating a special Christmas atmosphere. However, the conversation revolved almost entirely around Olivia's family. Michael won first prize at the school science fair, Judith said proudly. Michael has really inherited the Clark genes, Howard was delighted. Amber glanced at Emma. Her daughter was eating silently, but loneliness seeped from her expression. Emma won an art award at school too, Amber said quietly. Well, that's nice, Judith replied curtly before immediately changing the subject. Olivia, how's your new case going? After dinner, Judith announced, it's time to exchange presents. Michael excitedly clapped his hands and rushed to the tree. Brian and Olivia sat on the sofa with satisfied smiles. Emma leaned forward with her small body, her eyes sparkling. Amber felt a pang in her heart at her daughter's expectations. For weeks, Emma had been talking about the Princess Stella doll. Michael goes first, Judith handed him a large box. Michael tore the wrapping paper and found the latest electric miniature car. Wow! This is exactly what I wanted. Present after present was opened, and Michael received a new game console, science kit, expensive sportswear, and more. Olivia and Brian also received luxury brand accessories and electronics. Finally, it was Emma's turn. She reached out with her small hands and received the only small package from her grandmother. Emma, I'm sorry, Judith suddenly put on a serious face. We couldn't afford to buy you a present this year. Silence fell on the living room. The smile disappeared from Emma's face, replaced by confusion. But Emma's gaze turned toward the pile of presents that Michael had accumulated. We have to think about our medical expenses for old age, Howard explained. We can't afford luxuries. Amber felt her body tremble with anger, but maintained her composure for Emma's sake. It's okay, Emma. When we get home, there'll be presents from Santa. Emma looked sad for a moment but soon managed a small smile. I understand, Grandma. Money is important, isn't it? Those words tore at Amber's heart. Seeing an 8-year-old child try to understand adult circumstances, she could barely hold back her tears. Christmas night passed in a heavy atmosphere. As they were leaving, Michael proudly showed off his new toys while Emma watched in silence. Come visit again, Judith said to Amber. When we have more money to spare, we'll buy something for Emma too. That night, after returning to their apartment, Amber cried secretly in her bedroom, burying her face in her pillow so Emma wouldn't hear. A few days after Christmas, Amber was absently scrolling through her smartphone on the sofa after work. Checking social media, she noticed Olivia's latest post. Several photos accompanied the post. The first showed Michael riding what looked like an expensive new electric scooter. The next was of Olivia's family enjoying dinner at a luxury restaurant. And the last was a family photo of Judith and Howard smiling with Olivia's family in front of a magnificent Christmas tree. The caption read, "The best Christmas with family. Thank you for the wonderful presents and the finest dinner." Amber stared at the screen, unable to believe her eyes. The post was dated the day after they had visited her parents' house. "Mom, what are you looking at?" Emma returned from school and sat beside Amber. Amber tried to close her phone quickly, but it was too late. Emma had already seen the screen. "Wait, is that Michael's new scooter?" Emma said. "Is it from Grandma and Grandpa?" Amber was at a loss for words. Should she lie or tell the truth? But Emma's intelligent eyes were already beginning to understand. "But Grandma and Grandpa said they didn't have money." Emma's voice grew quieter. "Emma?" Amber didn't know what to say. Emma slowly pointed at the photo on the phone screen. "Grandma, aren't we family too?" Those words broke the last barrier in Amber's heart. Years of disappointment and anger poured out. She hugged Emma tightly. "We are family, Emma. We're enough family on our own." Emma's shoulders trembled slightly. Not from crying, but from the sadness of understanding. Amber quietly made a decision. "I understand. This ends now." At that moment, the doorbell rang. When Amber opened the door, Judith and Howard were standing there with tears in their eyes. "Amber, we need to talk to you." Judith's voice was trembling. Her eyes were red and swollen, and her usually perfect makeup was ruined. "Please come in," Amber said calmly, consciously trying not to show her emotions. Howard and Judith entered the small apartment's living room. Emma stood behind her mother, partly hiding. "Emma, could you play in your room for a while?" Amber asked gently. Emma hesitated but nodded and headed to her room. However, she didn't completely close the door. "You saw Olivia's social media post," Judith said, almost collapsing into a seat. "Yes, I did," Amber replied coldly. "The day after you told us you had no money, you gave Olivia's family lavish presents." "I can explain," Judith struggled for words. "Explain what?" "How you've treated Emma and me all these years." Anger seeped into Amber's voice. "Always Olivia first, and we come second? Or maybe third?" "That's not true." Howard objected. "We treated everyone fairly." "Fair?" Amber interrupted. "Expensive toys and science camp for Michael, and we don't have money for my daughter? Where's the fairness in that?" A heavy silence fell over the room. "We were wrong," Judith finally admitted. "After seeing Olivia's social media post, I realized what we'd been doing. When I pictured Emma's face. I'm an adult. I can handle however you treat me," Amber said quietly. "But Emma is different. She just wanted to be loved by her grandparents." "We truly regret it," Howard said. "Will you let us try again?" Amber stared at them intently. The years of disappointment and anger wouldn't disappear, but they were still her parents. Should she cut ties completely or give them another chance? "I can't give you an answer right now. I need time to think," Amber finally said. At that moment, a small voice was heard. Emma had peeked out from her bedroom door. "Emma?" Amber called out. Emma quietly entered the living room. There was a surprisingly mature expression on her face. "Grandma, Grandpa," Emma looked straight at them. "If you don't love me, that's your loss. I'm happy because I have Mom." Judith burst into tears at those words. Howard's eyes were also red. "We do love you, Emma," Howard said, his voice choked. "We just couldn't express it well." "Are you really sorry? Can you keep your promises?" Emma's question was simple but sharp. "Yes, I promise," Judith answered, wiping away her tears. Amber was surprised yet proud of her daughter's strength. She was relieved that Emma knew her worth and understood she deserved to be loved. It's getting late, Amber stood up. My daughter and I need time to talk. Her parents reluctantly showed understanding and prepared to leave. At the entrance, Judith placed a small package on the table. This is a present for Emma. What I should have given her for Christmas, she said softly. After the door closed, Amber and Emma hugged each other. Are you okay? Amber asked, stroking her daughter's hair. Yes, I'm okay, Emma smiled. Mom and I are a strong team, right? That night, Amber thought deeply for a long time. Instinctively, she wanted to completely cut ties with her parents, but she needed to make a calm decision for Emma's sake too. The next morning, she spoke directly with her boss Martha at the company. Amber, I think you can lead the new project, Martha said. It's a major client from the West Coast. Are you interested? Absolutely, please let me do it, Amber immediately replied. This was a big opportunity. If the project went well, there was a possibility of promotion. On the weekend, Amber took Emma to the park. Sitting on a bench drinking hot chocolate under the weak winter sun, they talked. Mom, what are we going to do about Grandma and Grandpa? Emma suddenly asked. What do you think? Amber wanted to hear her daughter's opinion. Emma thought for a moment before answering. I'm angry, but everyone makes mistakes, right? If they're really sorry, maybe we could give them a little more chance. Amber was surprised by her daughter's mature response. She felt warmth in her chest at the forgiving heart within her. You're right, Amber said quietly. Instead of cutting off the relationship completely, let's keep some distance and see if they can really change. Emma nodded. Yes, I think that's good. For the next few weeks, Amber immersed herself in the new project. She worked from early morning until late at night, spending weekends preparing materials as well. Emma understood her mother's efforts and tried to help with whatever she could. Emma, thank you for working so hard, Amber said one evening, seeing her daughter folding laundry by herself. I know you're busy, Emma said proudly. I'm getting bigger now, so I can help out. Amber also started a side business. She took on freelance web design work on weekends, gradually increasing her savings. Her goal was clear, to provide a better life for Emma and to prove that they could manage without her parents' help. She maintained minimal contact with her parents. She sent birthday cards and occasionally called, but they no longer spent weekends together as before. Judith and Howard wanted to visit several times and see Emma, but Amber told them, we still need time. There was no contact at all from Olivia. She had probably heard about the situation from their parents, but made no effort to repair the sisterly bond. Spring came, and Amber's project was a huge success. Martha officially promoted her to team leader. Congratulations, Amber, Martha announced in the office. The West Coast client was full of praise. Your annual salary will increase by 20%. That night, Amber brought home a cake for Emma. Mom, that's amazing. Emma jumped up and down when she heard about her mother's promotion. We should celebrate. Yes, let's celebrate, Amber smiled. Emma, I promise to make next Christmas special. Emma hugged her mother. Being with you is already special. But if there's a new Princess Stella castle? She joked, her eyes twinkling. Amber laughed. I'll consider it, little princess. By autumn, Amber's work became busier, and her responsibilities increased. But it was a good change. She had proven her abilities and was becoming respected by those around her. Emma was also thriving at school. She won an award in a creative writing contest, and her project was highly acclaimed at the science fair. Mom, look. Emma immediately showed her certificate when she returned from school. My teacher said my story was really good. That's wonderful. Amber hugged her daughter. My genius writer. The relationship with her parents was slowly changing too. Judith called on Emma's birthday and sincerely congratulated her success. Howard listened with interest to Emma's story about the science fair. But Amber remained cautious. She wanted to take time to make sure their change was genuine. In October, Amber heard about her next promotion. A department manager position was opening up, and she was the leading candidate. If realized, her annual income would increase further, promising a more stable future. As winter approached and the Christmas season came around again, things were different. Amber confidently went shopping and purchased the Princess Stella castle set that Emma wanted. She also planned to invite friends for a Christmas party. "Mom, are we inviting Grandma and Grandpa too?" Emma asked. Amber thought for a moment before answering. "What do you think? Should we invite them?" Emma said with a serious expression, "I think we can invite them. Everyone makes mistakes. But they need to keep their promises." Amber, moved by her daughter's maturity, picked up the phone. When the doorbell rang, she was already prepared. When she opened the front door, Judith and Howard were standing there. Unlike last Christmas, their eyes held a mixture of anxiety and hope. "I'm glad you came," Amber welcomed them in. Her voice was calm, but some caution remained. "Thank you for inviting us," Judith said softly. In her hands was a carefully wrapped present. Amber's apartment was completely different from last year. With her increased income from the promotion, she had moved to a larger 2-bedroom apartment. A sparkling Christmas tree decorated the living room, and the walls proudly displayed new paintings and Emma's artwork. "Emma, Grandma and Grandpa are here," Amber called, and Emma emerged from her room. She had styled her hair prettily and was wearing a new dress. "Merry Christmas, Grandma, Grandpa," Emma greeted them cheerfully, though with some nervousness. "Merry Christmas, Emma," Howard replied with a smile. "You look beautiful. Your new home is lovely." Judith looked around the living room. "Thank you. I got promoted, so there have been some changes," Amber said proudly. There was no pretense, just a quiet confidence in acknowledging her achievements. In the living room, Amber's friend Karen and her daughter Sarah, along with colleague Jessica and her family, were already chatting. The atmosphere was homey, and everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. "Everyone, these are my parents," Amber introduced them to her guests. "Nice to meet you," Karen warmly offered a handshake. "I always hear about Amber and Emma. They're truly a wonderful mother and daughter." Judith nodded slightly at those words. In her eyes was surprise that her daughter and granddaughter were so loved and respected by others. The party progressed pleasantly. Amber had prepared a homemade dinner, and everyone enjoyed the meal together. Topics flowed from work to children to plans for the new year. Although her parents were somewhat hesitant at first, they gradually blended into the conversation. Howard, in particular, was enjoying talking about sports with Karen's husband Mark. "Now, it's time to exchange presents," Amber announced after dinner. The children clapped excitedly. Emma's eyes sparkled as she looked at the colorful packages arranged under the Christmas tree. "Emma goes first," Amber handed a large box to her daughter. Emma carefully opened the wrapping paper and let out a cheer when she saw what was inside. The Princess Stella castle. "Thank you, Mom." She jumped up with joy and hugged Amber tightly. While embracing her daughter, Amber glanced at her parents' reaction. Judith's eyes were moist, and Howard was smiling quietly. "Next is from Grandma and Grandpa," Amber told Emma. Judith nervously handed a small box to Emma. "I hope you like this." Emma opened the box and took out a beautiful silver bracelet with a small star-shaped charm hanging from it. "It's so pretty." Emma's eyes widened. "It's from my mother to me, and now from me to you," Judith quietly explained. "It's a family treasure." "You're really giving this to me?" Emma asked incredulously. "Yes, of course," Judith nodded. "You are our precious granddaughter." At those words, a small silence fell over the room. Amber felt a warmth in her chest. This wasn't just a present but a sign of recognition as family. Emma held the bracelet to her wrist and said, "Thank you, Grandma, Grandpa." Her voice was small but filled with genuine gratitude. After the gift exchange, the adults chatted with wine in hand while the children played with their new toys. As Amber was preparing dessert in the kitchen, Judith came to help. "Let me help," Judith said. The two silently cut the cake and arranged it on plates. "Amber, you're a wonderful mother," Judith suddenly said. Emma looks so happy. Amber paused and looked at her mother. Thank you. We were wrong, Judith continued. We didn't treat you and Emma fairly. I regret it every day. Amber took a deep breath. The pain of the past wouldn't easily disappear, but perhaps it was time to forgive. We can't change the past, Amber said quietly. But the future is different. Grandparents are important to Emma. If the relationship is fair and caring, I welcome it. Tears fell from Judith's eyes. Thank you for giving us a chance. When they returned to the living room, Emma was enthusiastically telling Howard about her school project. Howard seemed genuinely interested. Grandpa, will you come to my next science fair? Emma asked. Of course, Howard answered with a smile. I'm looking forward to it. As the night grew late, guests began to leave. Her parents were the last to remain. Thank you for a lovely evening, Howard said. It's been a really enjoyable time, the best in a long while. Come again, Emma said. Next time I want to talk more. At the entrance, Amber faced her parents. Thank you for today. Emma was happy too. Thank you for inviting us, Judith said. She seemed to be searching for words, wanting to say something more. Let's take it slow, Amber suggested. One step at a time. After her parents left, Amber and Emma sat together on the sofa. Did you have fun? Amber asked her daughter. Yes, so much. Emma answered with a smile. She was carefully holding the Princess Stella castle, and the new bracelet shone on her wrist. Do you think Grandma and Grandpa have changed? Amber carefully asked. Emma thought for a moment before answering. Yes, I think they've changed. Grandpa really listened to me. Before, he would always talk about Michael right away. Amber nodded. The change might be small, but it had definitely begun. The day of Emma's science fair arrived. She presented her project on the relationship between plant growth and music. When they arrived at the venue, Amber was surprised. Judith and Howard had already arrived and were waiting in front of Emma's booth. Grandpa, Grandma, you came. Emma ran to them with joy. I promised, didn't I? Howard looked proudly at Emma's project. This is a wonderful project. As the judging began, Emma confidently gave her presentation. Seeing her daughter's confident demeanor, Amber's heart swelled with pride. She takes after you, Judith whispered to Amber. She's inherited your intelligence and strength. Amber was surprised by these words. It was rare to receive praise from her mother. Thank you. At the awards ceremony, Emma received the Creative Approach Award. When she went up to the stage, Amber and her parents stood up together and applauded. Congratulations, Emma, the three said in unison. On the way home, Howard suggested, how about dinner together to celebrate? When Emma looked at Amber with eyes full of expectation, she nodded. That sounds good. During the meal at the restaurant, Howard brought up a subject. Amber, there's something I want to discuss. What is it? Amber tensed slightly. I talked to Olivia, Howard said. I tried to make her understand our mistakes, but it's still difficult for her. Amber listened silently. But, Judith continued, we've decided to love and cherish all our grandchildren equally. No more favorites. That's good to hear, Amber said honestly. And, Howard hesitated a bit, we've opened an education fund account for Emma. The same amount as Michael's. Amber was surprised. That's. You can refuse if you want, Judith quickly said. We know you're strong and independent. But for us, we hope it can be a small atonement for the past. Amber thought deeply. She would have refused before. But now it was different. This wasn't just about money but a demonstration of equal grandparental love for Emma. Thank you, Amber finally said. I'll accept it for Emma. But I have one condition. Anything, Howard said. We found happiness on our own, Amber said slowly. So from now on, I want an equal relationship. Aid and control are different things. Her parents nodded seriously. Family means loving and cherishing each other, right? Emma suddenly said. The words contained both childlike purity and remarkable insight. The four people at the table looked at each other and quietly exchanged smiles. It had been a long and difficult journey, but finally, the true image of a family seemed to be emerging. 3 years after that decision, in winter, in an office in downtown New York, Amber Donovan was doing a final check on a new presentation. On the wall hung a sophisticated logo for the Donovan Digital Marketing, with young staff members working energetically. It had been a year since Amber established her own digital marketing company. The company was growing rapidly and already employed 10 staff members. Her expertise and honest approach earned trust from many clients, and her reputation in the industry was growing. Mom, are you finished? Emma, now 11 years old, peeked through the office door. After school, she often stopped by her mother's office. Just a little more, Amber answered with a smile. Emma had grown from that sad little girl into a confident, active young lady. She was developing her artistic talents and had even won prizes in local piano competitions, showing abilities in various fields. Above all, her smile contained true happiness. Grandma and Grandpa say they've already arrived at the airport, Emma showed her smartphone. Tonight was the night Amber's parents were coming to New York from Florida. Judith and Howard, who had retired 2 years ago, had moved to Florida seeking a warmer climate but regularly came to visit their grandchildren. All right, let me finish up work and we'll go pick them up. The family relationship had steadily been repaired. Her parents had acknowledged their mistakes and now treated all their grandchildren equally. Michael, Emma, and even little Sophia, who was born to Olivia last year, all received the same love. Initially, Olivia had resisted the family changes. She was confused and angry that the special treatment she had enjoyed for years suddenly disappeared. But over time, she began to recognize her own arrogance. Now the sister relationship was slowly improving too. Amber and her parents talked on the phone once a month and spent more holidays together. The relationship wasn't perfect, but it had become healthy, based on honesty and mutual respect. In the evening, Amber and Emma welcomed her parents at the airport. Was it a good trip? Amber asked while embracing her parents. Yes, very much so, Judith answered with a smile. She too had changed. Her obsession with perfection had faded, and she had become a gentler, warmer person. That night, during dinner at Amber's apartment, as Emma was talking about her homework, the doorbell rang. Who could that be? Amber wondered. When she opened the door, Olivia, Michael, and little Sophia were standing there. Surprise, Olivia said, looking a bit embarrassed. I heard there was a family gathering. Amber was surprised for a moment but quickly invited her sister in. Of course, come in. As the night deepened, the former tension dissolved, and the room was filled with laughter. Seeing this scene, Amber felt proud of her choices. The most important lesson she had learned from her life was that her value wasn't determined by others' assessments, but by her own efforts and love. And now, with that lesson in her heart, she was walking confidently into the future.